Hello everyone. So for my art project, I actually picked Japanism, arts and crafts movement, and Fauvism. I believe these three art movements, even though they're all very different, I still believe they kind of share a little bit of similarities, not only in the kind of inspiring each other, but also in the way that their technological movements allow them to spread and influence each other's artwork. For instance, during the beginning era, especially focusing on the Japanism movement, which started in the 1850s through the 1920s, trade began shortly after with Japan, which was a huge deal because it was once a closed-off country. So trade mostly began with Japan within Europe, and because of this, the paper that was actually pre-packed with the Japanese was this beautiful like artwork focusing on nature, which, by the way, was actually something Fauvism focused on, was a lot of nature's things. Even though it wasn't really mostly nature, it did kind of involve nature as well. But something so trivial to the Japanese, that they were allowed to put this in pre-pack, the Europeans actually relished it, and they actually loved the pre-pack paper with the little birds and the little plants that they had on it. And because of the printing press and the woodblock print, it allowed the Japanese to kind of widespread this and mass produce it, and also the Europeans as well, to copy off of them and mass produce it at such a cheap, relative low price, which allowed artists to collect them for themselves, for their actually home or everyday use. I also believe the arts and crafts movement, they also actually relied on such machinery as this as well, because they actually, even though a lot of the arts and crafts people believed in hand stitch was actually more favorable, there were some of the artists that believed in using machinery to create quilts and other things such as this. To me, they still used it. So to me, that's how all those three actually interrelate with one another. Fauvism, just like Japanism, created beautiful artworks. They both like to draw nature. However, Fauvism did not entirely limit it like Japanism did. Like I said earlier, Fauvism did decide to break out of traditional exceptions and focus heavily on bright, vivid color, as well as the arts and crafts movements in Japanism tend to lean toward more serene ones. So Fauvism used lots of bright colors. That's how they're kind of different, but at the same time, Japanism and arts and crafts are similar in where they like to use more cool, calm, subtle colors, subtle tones. Cultures adapting each other, such as the use of wood prints by Europeans and the admiration of the wrapping paper, but the Japanese were nothing more than a projecting an object, like I said earlier. Europeans and Americans actually really love this, and they actually, even though they seen as the Japanese as a foreign entity and foreign people, they actually looked above that, and they actually saw their art as something different outside of the box, and they actually admired it, and they actually widely interpreted it as their own, and the Americans and Europeans actually put their own spin on it. As you can see today, a lot of artworks and pieces are actually inspired by the Japanese. So the use of arts and crafts ideas, they were actually easily spread through newspapers and magazines, which, I mean, kind of obviously, since the arts and crafts movement were mostly like an American thing. Magazines, while Japanism was just as easily spread throughout extensive trade throughout different countries. So basically, Japanism got word of mouth through different trades, especially when they first started trading. So this kind of helped their artwork spread a lot quicker. So like Japanism, Fauvism were actually able to find their inspiration through other cultures, like African American culture and other countries outside European influence, and they were able to draw inspiration from them. So basically, all these three cultures kind of borrowed from each other. All these three art movements kind of borrowed from each other, and they kind of like used different cultures and different art styles to help benefit them, and they kind of basically interpreted their own kinds of artwork, pieces of artwork, and they made it into their own spin. That's switches to me, which is why they kind of, even though they're all from different time periods and they all have different styles, I believe some styles are still overlapping with other styles, just like some colors, shades, and painting techniques. They all kind of borrowed from each other, like I said, going back to the woodblock print or for the use of the printing press. To me, these artists actually these artists actually borrow from one another and help create these beautiful works of art that if you really get down to the nitty gritty, they all have a piece of each other in these works of art.